Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're very excited to be joined today with Sari Kimbell, who's going to be talking with us about getting through the tough times and how to think about staying positive. Sari is a business coach extraordinaire, and we're going to let her introduce herself. But before we hand it over to Sari, just a quick introduction. My name is Michael Mobitz. I'm one of the co-founders of Brandjectory, and with me is my partner, Tom Malengo, and his wife, Susan Bryington, who's not on screen. Brandjectory is a platform that helps to connect early stage CPG founders and CPG investors and help those founders prepare to raise capital and navigate the capital raise process. We do that through a combination of both a technology platform and offline facilitated meetings where founders and investors get to meet monthly, all virtual, and get coaching and mentoring from investors and industry experts, and share lots of wisdom of the crowd between themselves. We also just completed a very successful pitch slam back in mid-September, where the top two winners received $100,000 in cash and prizes between the two of them. And we've got a lot more exciting things going on. So if we can help you connect with investors, we'd love to talk with you about your journey and see how we can help. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Sari and let her take it away.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Michael and Tom, for hosting me, allowing me to come into Brandjectory. I'm really excited to be here. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get going here. All right. So today is about don't just survive challenging times. We are going to help you thrive. We're going to get through this, but I want you to do more than just survive. So this is going to be a little bit, interactive. I think when we participate in our own learning, we're going to get a lot more out of it. And so I would love for you to warm up your fingers and type into the chat and tell me your name and your product and include an emoji of how you're feeling today. I'd love to see that in the chat. I'm going to make sure I have the chat open. All right. So while you're doing that, I just want you to know, I want to make this really relevant to you. So the more you can participate and share with me what's going on in your world, the more I can use your examples. So while you guys are typing in, I want to introduce myself. If you don't know me, I'm Sari Kimbell. I have over 15 years plus in the food industry. I've done everything from sales and purchasing, working on an organic farm, also working for Whole Foods Market. I have started a food business. I have managed a commissary kitchen. I actually operate a farmer's market now. I have Sari Kimbell Coaching and Food Business Success, and I'm also a certified life coach. So for today, our outcomes are to give you some immediate stress relief to help you make clear-headed decisions. When we're going through tough times, right, our stress goes up and our decision-making goes down. I want to help you to solve any problem. I'm going to introduce you to the model to create different outcomes and a simple and fun strategy to help you achieve big goals. And if there's time, I would love to coach you on specific challenges that you're having. And you can do that either through the chat, or if you're brave, we can come on camera and we'll coach there. All right, so in the chat, I haven't seen anybody come in yet, so feel free. I'd love to hear who you are, what your product is, and an emoji on how you are feeling today. We will keep going. So I want to start with this. This quote comes from G. Michael Hoff. You may have heard Tony Robbins. He uses it a lot, but good times create weak people. Weak people create bad times. Bad times create strong people, and strong people create good times. So I hope that because you are here today, that you see yourself, at least that it's possible, that you can be one of the strong people that creates good times. So I'm just going to assume that that's a yes because you are here. But I like this model and this framework to start out, to know that it is cyclical. These things do come and go, and there's a method behind it and how it works. So I want you to think back, take yourself way back in the Wayback Machine to when you decided to start this business. It maybe feels like you were a child, right? I'm sure you weren't, but what is it that made you start? Why did you start this business? I would love for you to type into the chat and tell me, why did you even start this in the beginning, right? What did you hope to get from this? Maybe you were making something delicious in your home kitchen. Everybody told you you should start a business. You solved a health issue for yourself or a loved one, and you just have to share it with the world. Or maybe you're just like, I wanted to be an entrepreneur and I saw an opportunity in the market, and this was the perfect opportunity to step into it. Usually, what I hear are things like freedom, fun, a challenge, right? That I can prove it to myself, my mom, my dad. I can have impact. Yeah, Michael says we started Brand Trajectory to help food founders fund their better for you business and transform the food system. So it's like, it's good to think back. Why did we start this in the very beginning? There was motivation there, right? You certainly didn't do it to just have a really hard time. You probably had very positive reasons for starting it. So this is probably how you thought when you started your business, like it's just going to be a straight line on up, right? It's usually what we have a little bit of idealism, a healthy idealism. But the reality is this is what actually happens, right? Your business is a total roller coaster. And sometimes it can feel like you're even going backwards, right? Like the backside of the roller coaster. And you're like, wait, I'm back at square one, right? What happened? But you're never back at square one. And we have to go backwards sometimes to get that forward momentum. And so this is an adventure, right? You chose this adventure. Nobody made you do this. And so you decided to exit off of that predictable, safe life that you were living, right? Safe in quotes, but you decided to get off on the exit for entrepreneurship. So you're on this road, you've taken the path less traveled. I love it. We've got 99 problems and labor is all of them. All right, we're going to talk about that, my friend, for sure. So you've decided to take this entrepreneurship journey, but here's the deal. You have overloaded your car. This is you on the road, right? We're on the entrepreneurship journey, but you've overloaded your car with all of this crap. It's the perfectionism and the not enoughness and imposter syndrome and worry and self-doubt. And it's a drag on your success. It's making everything harder. And this is in the best of circumstances, right? When things are going well in the outer world. This is just you. And then we're going to we add in a pandemic, social injustice issues, inflation, supply chain disruption, labor shortages, and war. So I want you to just take a second. I'm going to slow it down. You just take a second when I list off all of those things, right? Whatever your particular issues are, the challenges you're facing, I want you to just notice your body. Take a breath. When you're thinking about those things, how does it make you feel? Maybe your heart rate goes up. Your throat might close, get a little tight. You might have like some head constriction, a knot in your stomach. What emotions come up for you? It might be anxiety or fear or worry, and apathy sometimes comes up. So it's good to just take a minute and notice this, because when our emotions are heightened, when we're thinking about all these terrible things, our emotions go up and our logic, our decision making comes way down. And I'm not talking about like, let's go fix our emotions with a bubble bath, right? This isn't even about self-care. I'm not talking about that. I am talking about your ability to make decisions. Your brains are wired to be really reactionary under stress. And we hyper focus when we are under stress. We go to black and white thinking. We limit our options. We're not creative solutions focused, right? And we instinctually counter our anxiety by simplifying, narrowing down, and kind of these all or nothing. So it's really important that as entrepreneurs, especially as entrepreneurs, you are managing your emotions, that you understand how to do this and how to lower that stress and get through these challenging times, because fear makes us do some crazy things. And there's a huge difference as an entrepreneur between reacting and responding. Because here's what's going on is we literally have two brains in our head. There is a reptilian brain, our primal brain, and it is freaking the F out right now, right? It is like labor shortages and my ingredients are increasing and the whole world's falling apart. It only focuses on the negative and it's saying to itself, danger, 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 because your body doesn't know you are not running from a tiger. Your nervous system, when you are in stress, is operating at that fight, flight, or freeze level. Okay. And so we have to reduce the anxiety. We have to bring the emotion down. And the solution is that we bring our prefrontal cortex, the second part of our brain, the rational brain, we bring it online and we learn how to manage our brain. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to give you some simple strategies, and then we're going to get into a couple other things, but these couple are just super easy things that I work with my clients on when they come to me presenting with a lot of drama and stress. So the first thing is to look at all the facts. Your brain is going to try to filter out all the good things, and it's only going to look at the terrible things, right? We are wired for negativity. So I like to call it giving equal airtime. And so we can go down the path of all the terrible things, but we also have to look at what if it works out even better than I imagined. We have to be willing to look at the positive. Recessions are painful, there's no question, but expansions are also very powerful. All of these circles, these dips are recessions. And I know we're not technically in one now, but it may feel like you are, right? But the reality is, recessions last. These are the facts. They last for on average 11 months, 11 and change. And then expansions have been really powerful, 67 months on average. And there's an upward tick overall. So this will not last forever. And so sometimes we just need to remind our brain, like let's look at all the facts. There are upsides of downturns. There's more opportunities for scrappy entrepreneurs. That word that we all came to loathe during the pandemic, right? Pivot. But the reality is that we can pivot easier when we're smaller. It weeds out competition. Now, I don't want that to be you, but it does help to free things up a little bit, shake out the weak ones, right? There are resources that start to emerge. It forces prioritization. This one's really important. It forces prioritization, alignment, and reinvention. Resilience, innovation, creativity, gumption, grit, and determination win the day. So looking at all the facts, very important. I want you to put your brain to work for you. If I ask you to look around in wherever you're at, in your office or wherever you're at, look for something blue. Your brain is going to filter out everything else and start looking for something blue. It's called your reticular activating system, or RAS for short. It filters in information and it filters out information. It filters in 4 things, and that's it. This is what gets into your brain out of everything going on around you. It filters in your name. It filters in whether somebody or you want to have sex. It filters in noises that could signal danger. And it filters in whatever you tell it is important to you. So it is going to pay attention to what you tell it to, right? What you tell it to look for. So I love this cartoon because this is so the truth, right? We're so focused on that one negative thing and we spin it out of control when we're not looking for the good. So you have to tell your brain what to look for. I like to ask my clients, what is the worst case scenario? Now, you've already probably gone there in your brain, but what happens is we just spin it around and it's like, it feels really terrible, right? It's like overwhelming. But when you get it out, when you answer the question, so I want you to actually answer the question out loud to somebody or write it down and just keep going. What and then what? What are you really afraid of? What is the worst case scenario? Because our brains make it really vague and really heavy. But usually, almost always, when we get it out, we're like, that's kind of ridiculous. That wouldn't happen. Mine is always, I am somehow in a van down by a river. I don't know. I guess I'm a Chris Farley Saturday Night Live fan. My friends are like, where exactly do you get this van from? And what river? And I'm like, I know it sounds ridiculous, right? But we go to the worst case scenario and just keep following it down. Okay, I have to shut down my business. Okay, then what? Like, go there and start to realize, like, okay, I can handle it. Right. We have to dissect the dark, just like we would if we were working with a child who was having nightmares, right? We have to shine light on it. So, whatever happens in that worst case scenario, I like to ask the question, okay, so what? And I'm not saying it like, so what? Like, who cares? But okay, you have to shut your business down. You like worst case scenario, you can't pay your loans and you have to sell your house. Okay, what do you make this mean about you? Because what the worst thing that happens is that we tell ourselves a story about what it means, that we're failure, we're worthless, we're not good enough. And the real worst case scenario is that we're going to feel an emotion. As an entrepreneur, your number one, you're like, if I could have a superpower, it would be to feel any emotion and not make it mean anything about me. What if you could feel rejection, sadness, anger, confusion, failure? If you allowed yourself to feel those things and let them process, not react, not numb out, not, go into major drama about it, but you're just like, yep, that's disappointment, you would be unstoppable. Yeah, emotions sometimes suck. They feel terrible. But think about all the things you're doing to try to avoid a negative emotion. So what if you decided ahead of time to have your own back, no matter what happened, and that you could handle any emotion? This is happening in our body. And you might be like, oh my gosh, she just keeps talking about our emotions and we're going to move on. But this is so key because we just want to think our way out of it. And I want to offer that stopping and noticing and offering ourselves some compassion. So even just like when you're stressed, putting your hand on your heart, taking a deep breath and saying, I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm loved. We have to bring down our nervous system because otherwise we're in fight or flight and we don't make good decisions. So that is the reason for this. This isn't about fluff. This is about you making better decisions as an entrepreneur. Because our brains, if left to our own devices, that primal part of our brain is just like, it's like a toddler running around with a knife. And that no good comes of that, right? And so this is what's happening if you let your brain go on autopilot, it's following what's called the motivational triad. It's three things: seek pleasure, avoid pain, and conserve energy. So if you do not manage your mind, this is what's happening always. And that is why you procrastinate. And that is why you don't put yourself out there. And that is why on and on and on, right? Because we're motivated by these three things. We have to bring that prefrontal cortex online. We are kept from our goal not by obstacles, but by a clear path to a lesser goal. And this is some foreshadowing of where we're headed today, but I want you to just think about the motivational triad, that like, if there's a clear path to a cookie and some relief, right, by numbing out, then then the harder goal, like going after the big goal, sometimes we choose that clear path, right? And we are actually sabotaging ourselves. So we know the downside now of an unmanaged brain. So let's talk about transitioning to using your brain for good and solving problems, because that's what we want to get to, right? We want to get to a place where the emotions come down and now we can look like problems. Okay, let's go. Let's talk about problems. Problems are forever. If you don't have problems, you're dead. That's it, right? So let's stop fighting against the problems. Your biggest problem is that you think you shouldn't have any problems. So that's where to start, is just accepting that problems are always forever. If you have problems, it means you're breathing. Welcome to being human. I like to tell my clients, remember, you always have 10 problems in your business. And if we can just accept that and go, yeah, I wish I had the problems I had way back when I started this, that would be so sweet, right? But back then, those were really big problems. So the problems just change. Resisting and reacting slow you way down. Problems are not personal. I think there's a lot of us, and myself included, where we're like, why me? The universe is conspiring against me. They're not personal. They're just happening. They're things in the world. So when I start to go to that personal place where I'm taking everything personal, I like to remind myself, give myself a little perspective. And this is very, I'm a big fan of Stoicism. I think every entrepreneur should do a lot of work around Stoicism. But let's just have a little perspective for a second. This moment in time has taken us 13.8 billion years to be created. There are 100 billion planets. We're just a tiny speck of dust spinning around in space. Your life, if you're lucky, you'll have about 31,000 days. You're just a tiny blip, and it will all be here after you're gone. It was all here before. You don't deserve anything. We're just going to go out and we're going to get to work. We're going to experiment. We're going to play. And problems, if we reframe it as like problems are a playground for us to overcome challenges and to be scientific and experimental, this is a big adventure. Putting it into perspective can be really helpful. So I like to give you 4 ways to solve any problem. Money. Money solves a lot of problems, right? If you don't have money, or sometimes we need a combination of time. So you can solve any problem most of the time with money or time. You can also just decide it's not a problem. There are things that you can just be like, you know what? I don't need to put any money. I don't need to put any time into it. I'm just going to decide it's not a problem. Move on, right? We put a lot of drama into things. Oh my gosh, somebody posted a negative review, and we make that a really big problem. We can also just decide it's not a problem and move on. I'm a big fan of the who, not how strategy. And that's probably why you're part of Brandjectory, or you're here today, is that you are finding other people who can help you. So you don't know the how. You're in it. You don't actually know how you're going to figure it out. But what you can do is say, who else do I know who might know some answers to this? This is where you go seek out mentors and coaches and other founders who have done this before. So anytime you have a problem, I am doing this so much now. I'm like, who do I know who can help me? Who? And I go and I make contact. Leadership is first about managing your own energy, and then helping others manage energy, manage their own. So I'm assuming because you're here, you are running a company, you are stepping up as a leader, you are willing to do hard things. And this is what leadership is about. You have to first take ownership of your own energy, and then you can go help others. So how do we do that? No matter what is going on. Well, let's talk about things happening in the world, the negative things, the things we interpret as negative. So somebody mentioned labor, right? So wages, sales manager quits, co-packer reschedules, cost of ingredients goes up, packaging has a major flaw, Equipment delayed. There's a recall. Shipping is going up, and Whole Foods decided to raise their prices on me without telling me. Otherwise known as the shit, right? These are all the crappy things that we interpret as being really negative. And then let's just be real. Like, there are good things that happen that we interpret as good. The buyer says yes. The trending TikTok video that's in our category, the new butter board, right? The co-packer gets new equipment that speeds everything up. Amazon sales are going up. We hire a VP of sales. That's going to be awesome. Equipment actually arrives early. And we get great feedback from a show. So these are all like, woohoo, right? We're doing a happy dance when we get this news. So we have the crap and we have the happy dance. All right. And some of you, I think, mentioned, yeah, like definitely the labor piece was in there, right? As a big issue. So these are things that are happening. These are just circumstances. So here's the mind-bending thing. And that took me a little while to get my head wrapped around it. But when I did, it changed everything. So whether it's the crap or it's the good stuff, the celebrate, the wins, right? These are all just neutral. They're just circumstances. They're just facts. Okay. It's like, there is a labor shortage, or I can't, I put out X number of job postings and I've only gotten 2 responses back and I need 10 positions filled. That is a circumstance. It's neutral. It is not good and it's not bad. And we're going to plug it into the model. And I'm going to show you how this all works, because this is where all your power comes from. But right now, most of you, and I certainly did too, I just thought my circumstances, whatever was happening in the world, created a result. It created something good or bad in my life, right? There was an outcome or result. I use those interchangeably. But here's the thing. We know, at least we can wrap our heads around that, like, there can be the exact same circumstance that happens to 2 people and they get completely different results. 2 people born into poverty, same exact situation, right? And they can have completely different lives, right? Different results. So circumstances are completely neutral. And so therefore, we have power to change this outcome. We're not like, it's not like it's just happening to us. So let me show you what this looks like. We're going to go through the model. So C is for circumstance, right? These are facts in the world that can be verified. And then there's a few things in between. Our brain just goes to the end result normally, but here's what happens. There is an action. I think we can all agree. Let's take this example here, that there's an action before there's an outcome. So let's say an employee doesn't show up for their shift. Okay, that's a fact. There was an 8 a.m. shift. They did not show up. You either fire them, you give them a warning, or maybe you don't do anything at all. You just are like, oh, okay, I don't know. I don't want to lose people. I'm not going to do anything. So there's an action before the result. I think hopefully we can all agree with that. Before that action, though, you actually had a feeling. There was a feeling that drove your action. So you could have been worried. Your employee didn't show up and you could have been like, oh my gosh, I hope they're okay, right? And that's going to drive one action. You could have been angry. That's going to drive a very different reaction, right? You might have even felt relief. Like, oh, I actually don't really, they're not a very good employee. Great. So the circumstance does not determine the outcome. It is, we have action, we have feelings, and then there's actually something that comes right before that. And that is a thought. It's a sentence in your mind that happens. This is your interpretation of that neutral circumstance. That is why an employee not showing up, one person could feel worried, one person could feel angry, one person can feel relief. because there's a different thought about it. And ultimately, whatever result that creates becomes a new circumstance. So this is a wheel. It keeps going. This is happening all the time without our conscious even awareness of it. But this is what's happening. It's kind of like we're on a big choose your own adventure book, right? Like something happens, we have a thought about it, we have a feeling, and then we take action, and then we have a new, right? So I just want you to think about, what are your thoughts about your business? When you think about your business, my thoughts are, and I'll give you some examples, but if you want to type in the chat, it'd be great to see, what are your thoughts about your business? Something you're like super stressed about, something you're enjoying. So tell me what your thoughts are about your business. These are some from my clients. I'm such an idiot. This is sucking the life out of me. I don't know what I'm doing. I can't believe I'm still doing this. Now, these are all negative. I recognize that. We have a negative bias, right? We're typically going to go to the negative unless we are mindful about it. But it also comes in sneaky ways. We are very sneaky. We sneak in negative even when we don't know we are. So we might be asking ourselves questions like, when will this finally work? Am I totally crazy? Why does this have to be so hard? And is this just an expensive hobby? So you might recognize yourself in some of these, right? Like this is, am I speaking English? Yes, there's no good answer to these. That's the sneaky part. You're never going to be like, almost never, you're going to be like, when will this finally work? Well, actually, it's working now, and I can totally see how this is actually going to work. No, we're asking that question because we know we're going to beat the crap out of ourselves with that. So I wanted to offer you that we have actually 60,000 thoughts going on in our brain all the time, right? About all the things. Most of them are unconscious, but this is actually great news because with all of those thoughts, we actually have power to manage our brains and to manage those thoughts. But first, we have to become aware of it. So you have power in this. And that's where I want you to come away feeling like I have agency. I have control over my outcome. This isn't just happening to me. So let's do another example just to help you with this. And I'd love to, if anybody wants to get coaching on this at the end or put in their specific situation, I can offer you, work a model with you. So let's just say ingredients are increasing. I'm sure most people are dealing with this, right? So inputs increase, you have a thought about it. Your thought might be, I don't know how I will survive this. Okay. So that thought is probably going to create an emotion like anxiety or worry or stress, right? And then our actions are going to be something like spin out in negative thoughts, compare yourself to others, and avoid making decisions. So action can be inaction or action, right? It's like, what did we do or not do? And so you can just imagine what the result of that would be, what an outcome of that would be, that we're probably not going to have very much progress at all. So now we have a new problem, a new circumstance that our inputs have increased and we have stalled out our business because we're not making decisions. So this is a challenging model. Like it's hard to get a good result with these actions, this feeling, and this thought. So let's do that again a little bit differently.
Sorry, I hate to interrupt, but
Yeah.
can I ask a question about that previous
Please.
example, if you could go back?
Yeah.
So what if on the on that, I'll call it the 7 o'clock actions, what if the action is, I don't know what to do? I'm not sure of the right answer.
Yeah. So the thought is, I don't know what to do, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, per se, okay, so something happens. I don't know how
Yep.
I'm gonna, some emotion comes up, and you go,
Yep.
I don't know the right answer for how to address this.
Yeah. So your action is just not doing anything, right? You're just like spinning out,
Or
right?
feeling, uncertain,
Yep.
uncomfortable with making a decision. And
Yeah.
I guess for me, if that was the process, then I would say, well, I got to seek out somebody who might know something about this.
Right.
Um, I guess that's one option.
Yeah. So I would say that we just need to tease, like you're telling me all the parts of the model. It's just I don't know what to do is a thought. So something happens and your thought is, I don't know what to do. The feeling might be uncertainty or scared or anxiety. And then you don't do anything. So nothing happens and you're just like, days go by. So let's just take that same example and we'll do it with a little different thought. So instead of I don't know what to do, it could be something like I can figure this out. And so a thought like that, even though you're like, well, I don't know exactly what to do, or take yours. I don't know. I don't know what to do, but I bet I know somebody who does. Or maybe, there's somebody I could talk to. And so you're going to have a different feeling. Do you feel how that thought changes the feeling a little bit?
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah. So then the feeling would be something more like determined. And then exactly what you said, I'm going to reach out to my community. I'm going to go find a coach or a mentor. I'm going to make one decision, the next thing I know how to do, and I'm going to schedule that on my calendar. So it might be determined, it might be committed, something like that, but it is a different feeling, and it's going to get us a little different result. So
Thank you.
now we're not, yeah, no, it was a great question. So now we have a new result that's like, okay, I've taken one action or I've gotten a little bit more information. I'm closer to making a decision. There's a new result that's happening. And so I want you to think about emotions that you want to cultivate as an entrepreneur. These are the ones that I really recommend. Notice that they're not necessarily like joy or I don't know, like just that like incredible fun, super awesome emotions. Determination, committed, those are kind of gritty. Those are like a little bit more towards the negative. They're not super positive, but they are emotions that will get you to the next place, that will help you keep going. I love gratitude is a big one, right? Perspective, gratitude, hope like if we don't have hope that we can figure this out, we're dead in the water. So how can we cultivate hope? So excited is on there, but excited and motivation, those have half-lives. Sometimes we need a little bit grittier emotions in there to keep us going, because excitement fades, motivation fades. But thoughts that help create these are things like, I can figure this out. I wonder how this will play out. I'm curious. Who could help me? It's always worked out for me in the end. Things like that. But be very careful when you're doing thought work. You're trying to manage your thoughts. Don't go to rainbows and unicorns. It is not believable. We cannot go to, I'm confident and this is going to turn out amazing. It's just not believable. And this is why mantras don't actually work if it's too big of a leap. Your brain actually rejects mantras that are like, I'm amazing and I'm confident and this is going to be awesome. And it actually backfires and you're like, screw you. Right? There's like some rebelliousness that kicks in. So I just want you to find a 1% better thought, something that makes you feel slightly less shitty, a 1% shift to inspire a different action. So it could be a thought like, I've figured this things out like this in the past. I wonder how I'll do it again. Or it's possible this time I could figure it out. So just 1% better. That's all I'm asking. All right. We're going to circle back to the model towards the end here. But the simplest way, I want to give you a strategy that I have been really putting into play for about the last 6 months. And it has really changed so much about my business as an entrepreneur. I am having more fun. I am creating more clients and create, all the things, right? And so I want to give you this strategy. It's simple and it's fun and it helps make your business more fun, even in challenging times, and especially in challenging times. So you probably recognize this guy, Justin Gold. He did not know in 2004 how he was going to create a big brand. He was going to the farmers markets. He didn't have the tools and all of the, the strategy on how to sell Justin's nut butter for $286 million, right? It was a 20-year process, or a long time, maybe it wasn't 20 years, 15 years. He certainly didn't know how to deal with a recall that left his company $1 million in debt. But what he told me on the podcast interview I did with him, it's episode 103 of Food Business Success podcast. What he told me is that he had a bigger vision of himself and his future. And it was a big enough vision that helped him to get past all of those obstacles. He was not going to give up no matter what. So this strategy is tapping into your future self, that you are looking ahead and you are asking, you are gaining the wisdom from your future self. How do I do this? She or he knows how you did it, right? You fast forward in time and go and connect with this future self. We want our future to be big and we want it to pull us forward rather than us trying to push from the past. Because when we push ourselves from the past, it's usually filled with self-loathing, self-criticism. We're beating ourselves up the whole way, trying to motivate us to the goal. And it just never works because it feels terrible. And we don't like doing things that feel terrible for very long. That's why you can't stick to diets usually. It's because we beat ourselves up about it. If you want to make your present bigger, make your future bigger. So I want to ask you, when you think about, is your future vision of your life big enough to motivate you? Is it big enough to help you overcome, to put out the energy of like getting over the motivational triad, to seeking pain? You are going to fail. There has to be something bigger. It has to be really big. You're going to get rejected. You're going to have long-term gratification, not the immediate gratification. So I want you to go to like 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. I want it to be a little bit further out, not like in 2 years. Go out, zoom out and say, I've already done it. I did the thing. I sold my business for X. I'm in all of these stores. I did these things, right? You've accomplished the goals. Who do you need to become? What qualities does this person 20 years out from you, what do they do? What do they say? What do they believe that is different than what you're doing now? It might be discipline. It might be focus. It might be procrastinating less, taking more risks, speaking up, making decisions faster. How can you start to bring some of that into your life now? Go to that future vision. This is me on these steps in Sedona last month. I went on a meditation retreat and we did this exercise called 120 steps. And it was amazing. It was really powerful to have this physical, representation of your life. So every step had a number. And the first years of my life, it was actually very powerful, very emotional. And so you're walking through, and you're taking these steps, right? And then I got to my current year, 47, And I'm looking back, over my life and like looking ahead at all the steps ahead of me. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. So I start taking the steps forward. And like, I don't know, the 50s, 60s, I'm like, okay. And then I get to 70, I'm right around 70, and I'm like, I have this vision of myself at 70. I'm like, she's a badass. She says stuff that I would never say now in a kind way, but she speaks her mind, right? And she takes risks. She does like really interesting things. I just had this vision of her at 70. And I'm looking back, I turn around, I look back, and I'm like, so I have to wait 23 years to do that? Wait, I want to actually start doing those things now. So it's really stuck with me. I have started saying things to people that I like speaking the truth, saying hard things. I'm doing bigger, bolder things. So tap into this future version of yourself and let him or her pull you and start to embody some of this now. So let's say this is where you're at now, and you want to get to your big goal, whatever that is, the sell for 286 million. We'll go big. Why do you want to get there? I mean, really think about this. Like, what is the purpose of having a big goal? Why are you even doing this? We know why you started the business, but now why are you going after this big goal? And this is everything, because you have a vision of how you think it will be different if you get there, right? There is a why. Like, why on earth are we doing this? And as you think about your why, what you think will be different when you achieve this goal, I want you to put aside your perfectionist fantasies. Your future self still goes to the bathroom, still gets sick, still fights with your partner or kids, doesn't always feel like going to the gym, right? Makes mistakes. So no futuristic fantasies, perfection fantasies. So these are the usual ones that I get, that I hear, right? If I get to my big goal, I will be successful. I will have money. I will get respect. I will be happy. I'll be happy all the time. I will have recognition, right? Those are usually the main ones. And then I want you to think about going a little bit deeper. So we have those. Go a little bit deeper here. Safety, right? That I can rely on myself, that I bring in my own money, I pay for my own bills. Pride, growth, worthiness, abundance, freedom. I don't have to do the 9-to-5 job. I have freedom in my life and my business, and contribution or legacy. You're leaving a mark. Okay, great. Now here's the problem, is that you're trying to get there and you're doing it this way. You're in a rush, you're pressure, you're exhausted, you're confused, you're overwhelmed, you're self-critical, and you're living in perfectionism, right? So we're trying to get to the future, get to that goal, to get all the good things, but we're doing it this way. And it feels terrible. You can't get there from here, right? So if you want the end result to be this, you have to start coming from all of that. You have to be it now. You have to give yourself safety and security. You have to be proud of yourself. You have to live in abundance now. This is why people can make a lot of money and be very unhappy or be very scared of the future. Even though there can be people with millions of dollars in the bank and they are still scared, living in scarcity, right? And fear of the future and running out of money. So we have to step into this now. There is no magical arrival. You can't hate your way happy. You can't fear your way to safety. You can't beat yourself up to pride. You can't hoard on your way to abundance. So we have to start being this person, whatever we want at the end, we actually need to start now. So a takeaway I would love for you is to think about, what is one or two things that I want because of this goal? If I achieve this goal, what can I start being and doing now? And the way we do this is with our mind. It's with our imagination. We create a vivid vision of our future, one that is big. We got to go big. And we use our thoughts and our feelings to actually live in there. And here's the crazy part, is that your body does not know the difference between what has already happened, what is in the past, and what you're imagining in the future. It is the same feeling. You can feel gratitude for the future and gratitude for the past, and your body doesn't know the difference. And if you're wanting to learn more about this and see, there is research, Joe Dispenza is who I highly recommend if you want to dive in. He's on a lot of podcasts, and he's a great one to listen to about becoming your future self. So I want you to make your future big, 10x it. Be bold about it. Tell people. And then from that future place, commit, prioritize, plan, make decisions, schedule in future activities, put in milestones. So let's just say, sometimes I think it's easier to use examples outside of our businesses because we're so like in the weeds. Let's just say you want to be healthy at 70. You're like, I want to be really super healthy. I want to be like running races and things. Well, we don't just magically show up that way. Schedule races now if that's the big goal, right? So put in small milestones. And this is how we motivate our brain. Our brain likes progress. It gets small dopamine hits when we make progress. So I'm going to circle back to the model, and then we're going to wrap it up. And again, I'd love if you want to type in the chat an experience or something that you are going through, an issue, and I would love to help you with that through coaching. Or if you feel comfortable, you can turn on your camera and we can do it face to face. So the beauty of the model, and this is what I love, is that once we are aware of it, that we have power and agency, is that you can create anything you want. You can create the result that you want. So whatever that is, let's say it's $286 million, selling your business. There is an action, there is a feeling, and there is a thought behind it. And I don't care where you start. You can start at you can say, oh, I know the actions that I probably need to do. Now, you're not going to know every action, but you know the next actions. And that's why you work with groups like Brandjectory. Or you could say, what is the feeling that I need to create? It's probably something like determined or committed. Or you might have a sentence in your mind, but you can actually create the result, the outcomes that you want. And we do this happens like daily in micro little examples, and then it can also happen on macro examples. But we have to become aware of what's running in our brain, right? The program, the tape, the CD on repeat. But you have so much more control than you maybe ever thought possible. So what do you want your experience to be on this roller coaster, right? These things are going to happen. They're just neutral, right? Buyer says no, doesn't mean anything about you. It's just a neutral fact, circumstance in the world. Buyer said words. Then you have thoughts about it, and you have a feeling, and you have an action. So you get to control your experience through your mind. So I gave you some ways to help manage your brain. The worst case scenario, equal airtime, the reticular activating system, the model, and your future self. And I just want to bring you back to where we started, that I hope you see yourself in this space, that even though we might be in bad times, and I will argue that that's still it's still neutral, but let's just say all the facts, right? All the facts about inflation and all the things. Okay, we're going to define it as bad. This is where you get to show up This is where resilience, this is where being an entrepreneur is something really special. So I hope that you are in on this and learning more tools to help manage your mind. So this is my information, and I will stop it there. And if you'd like to connect with me, you certainly can. All right. Look at that. An hour. We did it.
Sorry, this was amazing. Thank you so much. I do want to leave it to our audience to ask the first questions. I do have one, but I want to let other folks chime in first.
Yes. Somebody asked me what retreat I was at. It was called Sedona Mago, MAGO. It's a Taoist retreat center. Now, I love, I'm not sure this person's name, but Nowhere Bakery mentioned labor, 99 problems, and labor is all of them. So if you'd like to give me a little bit more information, we could maybe work through that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Or yeah, go ahead.
Hey, sorry. First of all, thank you so much for this. Your voice is very soothing, so that's number one. Your advice is amazing and definitely a lot of great input. Yeah, so my wife and I have started this company 2.5 years ago. We are growing steady and we're looking to scale, and the business is there, but labor is so challenging.
Yeah.
And to give you the very fast version, we spend a lot of our time, most of our time, teaching, training, motivating. We actually like to use the terms team members, not even employees, right? So we really kind of take care of them as if they were family, because we know what it takes. We know from our past experience what's great about working in a place and what's not great about working in a place. Long story short, we remain so challenged with the fact that people are leaving for mental problems or disputes, or they find other jobs, or some of the best people we get are students, and we know that we have limited time with them. So, it kind of gives us this moment of, what are we doing? Should we just go straight into a co-packer? Are these signs that say, you guys are idiots and you guys are not doing the right things? With, every thought kind of comes to mind, and we really don't know how to navigate some of these things, because the second we lay off the gas pedal, something of a giant crash forms.
Well, let's just be clear. Co-packers are super easy and there's never any problems with those. So you should definitely do that. Just kidding. Yeah, you just have different problems, right? Now the co-packer has labor issues, right? So you just shifted problems over.
Yeah.
So the decision making is a whole other model, but let's just stick with labor. You want to keep self-manufacturing. So what are your current thoughts about these problems, these labor issues? When I say labor shortage.
Yeah, everything from, are we not doing the right things? Are we not motivating or teaching? To should we really break down smaller roles, maybe just have something more defined? Should we go to a full-time? Should we go to a part-time? Should we be, this flexible, that flexible? I mean, at this point, I'm basically like, what do you want to do and what are you capable of doing, and how many times do you want to do it?
So every time, what I want you to do is just, I'd love for you to have, if you have any time after this, is get a sheet of paper out and just write down, we call it a thought download. Like, it's a vomit fest of just like all your crappy idea, all your thoughts, all your questions about labor. Now, every time you have a question, because what you did was you gave me a lot of questions, I want you to circle those. And what really needs to happen is you need to answer those questions. Are we doing the right thing? Well, no. Maybe it's no, maybe it's yes, but a thought never has a question mark behind it. So I'm going to ask you again, when there's a labor shortage, when you have people quitting and you're not able to fill the labor, let me ask it a different way. What is your feeling about that? How do you feel?
Feeling is like the hardest thing for me to express. Confused. Is that a feeling?
Yeah. Yeah. Confused. You might be disappointed.
Definitely disappointed.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Put in a lot of time and effort.
My wife just yelled at frustrated.
Frustrated. Yes. Okay. So that's great. First, we have to, before we go to daisies and rainbows, we have to like, what is going on in this crazy brain of ours? So, of course, now we're taking actions out of frustration and disappointment and confusion, right? And now we're asking ourselves. So the action is like, I'm confused. So now I'm just going to ask myself a whole bunch of questions and I'm not going to actually answer them. Just going to spin around in my head all these questions. So there's a thought probably like people like disappointment. It might be like people just don't do what they say they're going to do anymore.
Yeah.
Or frustrated, like, does anybody, like, nobody cares about my time.
Yeah.
Nobody seems to care about this. And and here's what I say about thoughts. Like, you can keep your thought. Like, you don't have to change it. I'm not telling you to change it, but is it getting the result that you want? And it doesn't sound like it is. So the only thing you have control, employee quits, employee goes back to school, employee has mental issues. Only thing in your control is your thought about it. So if we're going to choose to be on this merry-go-round and not like, we could choose to go on the co-packer merry-go-round, but we're going to have a whole bunch of other problems and things that we have to deal with over there. So we're going to choose to be on this ride. How do you want to think about labor? What might be a 1% better thought?
I wish that I could employ someone else to take these challenges, right? So not really toss my problems into someone else, but because there are so many and we have only an aggregate amount of time in a day.
Yeah.
I wish we could, and we tried to hire an operations manager who we trained for 1 month straight nonstop, who then resigned exactly at that month. So and it
happens. I've spent a lot of time training people and then had them quit on me. I mean, I'm not saying you should get rid of that thought. I'm not saying you shouldn't feel disappointed, because it is good to be like, wow, that sucks. Like, let's not kid ourselves, right? The stinks. It stings that you put in all that time. You did all those things. Okay, now what? Now we're not going to take it personal. Yeah. This isn't personal. This is part of running a business. I run a business. It's 2022. Labor is a challenge for everybody. It's not just me. And so I get to choose if I'm going to show up and be like determined to figure it out versus frustrated. Right. So if you were feeling determined, what do you think you might do instead?
I would say challenge myself and us to find new creative ways or other methods, continue on the same path too, because you never know. It could just be that one person. It could just be that obstacle, and so it's not worth kind of scratching that off, right? So maybe that.
Yeah. You could go to the who strategy. Like, let me go talk to some other people. Let me go talk to a mentor, coach. Like, what's happening? Do you see any flaws here? Like, you might start evaluating, like, what's missing here? What am I like? Maybe there's something missing. And that's where you start answering your questions that you had. Am I doing the right thing? Should I bring somebody else in? Right? Some of those things. And some of this is just a big learning experience. I learned from bringing in like 3 assistants and giving them all the backstory and all this time. I realized like after 3, it took me 3 times to figure out maybe I need to like ease them into this and not give, not put in so much time training them and give them a project, see how they do, and then let them work their way up. And so we're not going to beat ourselves up about it. The only way you learn is by having these quote unquote mistakes or failings, but then it's only a mistake if we don't actually learn from it and we just keep doing it.
Yeah, I was telling the story the other day. We went to a random hibachi restaurant over the weekend, and the atmosphere was insane, right? The place was crazy busy. There was so much steam and smoke in that place. Even when you weren't working, you were just sweating already within minutes of being there. And
Sounds
here
lovely.
are 6 chefs doing all the crazy, cutting and throwing and cooking and all this kind of stuff, sweating through their coats and jackets.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, one, I'm sure they're not paying any more than we are. And these guys are suffering through this crazy environment. And yet we have air conditioning, we're nice people, right? Like, how can these guys keep, I don't know, what looks like a long time staff in
Yeah.
such conditions? And yet, which is, a slide that you put, right? Like, it's not personal and don't compare yourself to others. But yeah, obviously these kinds of things always come to mind.
What if you go ask them?
Yeah, good call. I should have done that.
You can call them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, like when we get stressed, we're down to like black and white thinking. So if you kind of step back and you're like, we try to give ourselves a little bit of relief, a little bit of ease, like this is just part of it. This is part of the deal of 2022 and the things that are happening. And these are bad times. These are hard times, but I am committed to my future self and getting through it. And that guy down the road, he knows how we get through this. Right. And so let's start answering your questions, because I think what you're doing is just spinning around in a lot of questions, and see if you can find just a little bit better thought. Again, feel the disappointment, feel the anger when it comes up, but I like to put a time limit on it and be like, all right, I'm going to feel that disappointment or anger for like the next 4 hours, and then we're moving on and we're going to go find a better thought. Because otherwise, then you're going to go try to hire. And if you hire out of frustration for the other person, think about now your discernment is not great because you're thinking about that other person and how they hurt you and you're frustrated. So learn, take what, okay, I noticed that this happened and this didn't seem to work well. And what can I do different in the process? But we don't want to drag in the emotion, carry that in. We want to get to a little bit better place where you're like, hey, future self figures this out. We're still around in 10 years. I wonder how we do that. Let me get curious.
That's great. Thank you.
No, thank you for being brave. I know it can be scary coming on, but I appreciate you being brave to jump in. So I hope that was helpful.
Definitely.
So good.
Thank you, Sari.
I know we're almost at time. Michael, did you have anything else? Sure.
There was actually, this term was actually in your presentation, and that is exhausted. So, with the weight of things, et cetera, and perhaps the way we're thinking about things, we start to feel exhausted. How do we break that cycle? How do we get refreshed? And I'm sure you'll say something as, well, you got to take time for yourself. I get that. But if there's things within our control, there's things that are out of our control, there's things that are within our control that might be creating it.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think that there is some looking at the facts, like I'm exhausted. It is a thought. It isn't a fact, right? There's a circumstance that's happening. So exhausted is a thought, and then it's creating exhaustion. And then we have actions that come from that. So it's important to say, okay, am I not getting, things like, am I not getting enough sleep? Am I not fueling my body well? Like, am I not doing stress things that can help physically, with the exhaustion? But then there's also the emotional piece of exhaustion. And one example I use with that is like, okay, let's say you come home and you've just had the worst day and you're so exhausted and you're just like, I've had it. This is it. And then your friend calls you and says, oh my gosh, you just won the lottery. You would not be feeling exhaustion anymore, right? So it is something that is a state that can be changed with thoughts, right? Because now you're like, I won the lottery. I'm so excited, like exhaustion gone. So it's just important. I'm not saying that you can't keep exhaustion, but it's probably not serving you very well in your business. And so there may be some circumstances like sleep and eating and taking care of yourself and stress reduction and meditating and those kind of things that can help. And ultimately, sometimes there's short-term exhaustion where we know like, I got to push here, right? I got a 2-month holiday push and I just know I'm going to be exhausted sometimes and that's okay. And then sometimes we're in it for a very long time and we have to question, is this really is there a different way to do this? Not necessarily quit the business, but I probably need to do things differently. And the other thing is like, maybe it's just not a problem that we're exhausted. Like, we're exhausted. Okay. We pile on suffering. I'm so like, I'm mad at myself that I'm exhausted. So exhaustion is kind of neutral. And then we pile on, I'm so mad at myself. I can't believe I did this to myself. Like we pile on all this judgment on top of it. So what if you just get a bad night's sleep one night, right? You just wake up and you're really tired. Happens to all of us. I have noticed that in the past, I would beat myself up about that. Oh, you should have gone to bed earlier. You shouldn't have had that drink. You should have done this, right? And then I'm like tired and I'm feeling terrible that I'm tired. And now I'm like, okay, I'm tired. We're going to do tired today. That's what we got. I'm going to take care of my body. I'm going to give it what it needs. I'm going to see if maybe I can sneak in a nap. But I can do tired. Not a problem. Hopefully
Wonderful.
that was
Thank you.
some useful tips for everybody. You're welcome. Thank
Any,
you so much for
closing
having
thoughts?
me. Yeah. Just we're all in it and using some of those tools. Go back, watch this again if you need to. Reach out, follow me on social, and the podcast is a really useful place to get more of this kind of knowledge and tools. So as an entrepreneur, we have an obligation to manage our mind. So go do it.
For sure. And the name of the podcast again?
It's Food Business Success.
Great.
Yeah.
Tom?
Thank you, Sari. Thank everybody for being here, and we'll have you back.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks again, Sari. This was wonderful.
You bet.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye, Waven.